Constitution is filled with provisions about right to jury trial, about right to silence, about due process, and so forth, none of which operates in the current system. The Constitution of the United States contemplates that criminal justice in this country will be decided by judges and juries, and the determination of who is right will be made by neutral parties. That has totally been eliminated from the American criminal justice system. 97% of all people who are charged criminally wind up entering into plea bargains, and in many cases that's because they can't take the risk of going to trial. And the result of all this is mass incarceration. The United States has by far the greatest number of people in jail and prisons of any country in the world. The second problem with it is that innocent people wind up pleading guilty because they can't take the risk of exposing themselves to the possibility that they might face many, many years in prison. And the final problem is, good as prosecutors may be, if you give people unchecked power, eventually you're going to have abuses. So the classic check on prosecutors, prescribed by the Constitution, was your right to a jury trial. Now they don't even have to remotely think about that possibility in a great many cases because they get an instant plea bargain. So the first thing that should be done is to do away with mandatory minimum sentences. This has been the uniform recommendation of the federal judges of the United States for at least 20 years. We see in our courts how harsh, how often unfair these mandatory minimums are. Things have developed that for all practical purposes, it is the prosecutors who call the shots. And that's because Congress has, through a series of laws, increased the penalties to such a great extent that everyone has to plead guilty. Back in the day, when I was a prosecutor and for decades before, it was a much more confined discretion, and you didn't have that kind of power because there were no mandatory minimums, there were no sentencing guidelines. The result was that even when you cut a plea bargain, it was on much narrower bases than it is now.
Hey, NBC News viewers, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down here and click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives. Thanks for watching.